everybody. Welcome into the Shelby County High School football show. We're out here at Herbmont Park, plays host to the Oak Mountain Eagles, their home football stadium. And it's going to play host to our game of the week as well this Friday night. The second time we will have had a game of the week out here at Herbmont Park. The Oak Mountain Eagles will be playing host to the Hoover Buccaneers, former number one team. They're going to slide down in the rankings a little bit after a loss to Hewitt Trussville this past Friday night. But we left it up to a fan vote this week. A lot of great games across Shelby County and a lot of them at home. So I wanted to give the fans an opportunity to vote. We did that on Twitter at SCR Sports. We might do something like that again in the future, so make sure you're following us there on Twitter at SCR Sports is the Twitter handle. But we left it up to that fan vote. They voted for this Oak Mountain Hoover game. It'll give us a chance to talk a lot about the Oak Mountain Eagles, who have shown some impressive things early in the season, despite a freshman quarterback who's just been lights out, especially with his legs over the last couple weeks, and Luke Purser, the running back here at Oak Mountain as well. So we'll touch on the Oak Mountain Eagles hosting the Hoover Buccaneers, a big Class 7A Region 3 matchup. There's a lot of good games across the county this Friday night, though, as I've mentioned already, and a lot of them at home. We've had a lot of teams on the road early in the season so far, so it's a good thing to see a lot of these teams coming home, a lot of them at home on this big Friday night upcoming. And if you're going to be out here in this area, we've got three teams within probably a 4 or 5 mile radius that are all going to be at home. Spain Park at home, Briarwood at home, and Oak Mountain here at home. So if you're going to be on 119, 280, or Valleydale, or even 65 on Friday night coming to these games, you may want to give yourself some extra time. So we're going to touch on all those games, all the rest of the games that we have going on across the county. It's a huge slate of region matchups. We're to that midway point of the season to where you need to be winning football games, getting momentum, because if you fall to 0-3 in region play at this point, it's going to be a strong uphill battle to make the playoffs. We'll also touch on our two undefeated teams still, the Briarwood Lions and the Montevallo Bulldogs. It's been strong starts for both of those teams, so we'll talk about them as well. But we're going to break down every game that we have upcoming this Friday night, and at the end of the show, as we do every week, we'll name our SCR Stars of the Week. Several just incredible performances that stood out, and even with teams that lost, I saw some strong leadership. I'm starting to get a really good feel for how players are handling situations, coaches, teams, everything. So we're going to talk about all of that on this week's show, but we're going to start with our game of the week out here at Herbmont Park between the Oak Mountain Eagles and Hoover Buccaneers. What an interesting turn of events we've seen in this matchup between these two teams that are going to be taking to the field right here at Herbmont Park on Friday night. The Oak Mountain Eagles, they played Hewitt Trussville closer than Hoover did. Hoover loses last week to the Huskies 56-28 in just a jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring performance that I don't think anybody was expecting. We saw that Hewitt Trussville was obviously a good team, but coming off a slim 52-47 win over Oak Mountain, I don't think we expected them to go out and just obliterate Hoover last Friday night. The number one team in the state, coming off a big win over Thompson, the number two team in the state the week before that, or number one team in the state the week before that. So it was just incredible to see what Hewitt Trussville was able to do. And now you've got a Hoover team that is going to be angry, just like Thompson was coming off that loss to Hoover when Oak Mountain faced them last week. You're going to have a Hoover team in that same situation this week. But that being said, this Oak Mountain team's playing some incredible football right now, obviously coming off of 2 straight losses, sit at 1-2 on the season so far. Those 2 straight losses, however, to 2 top 10 teams by 14 points or less. They lost last week 35-21 to the Thompson Warriors, still a top 5 team there. The week before that, they lost to Hewitt Trussville 52-47, and that's a team that's probably going to jump up within the top 3 this week, and maybe even in the top 2 after that win against Hoover. So it's just a gauntlet of a schedule right now for the Eagles. This will be the conclusion of that 3-game gauntlet against 3 teams that are probably going to be in the top 5. So, as long as they can get through this stretch really healthy, handle the physicality for one more game, I really like this team moving forward. I don't know that they drop another game the rest of the season down the stretch just because of this experience that they've gotten so far. And it started 2 weeks ago with that close game against Hewitt Trussville, fell behind 28-6, but came back, lost that game 52-47, but actually had the ball late after forcing a Paul Tyson turnover. So that showed that, put another minute on the clock there, Oak Mountain might have won that game. And then last week against Thompson, they lose by 2 scores there, but with 5.5 minutes to go, it took Talia Aloha throwing a touchdown pass to a wide-open A.J. Bonham to really close that game out too. Otherwise, it was a 7-point game with 5.5 minutes to go, and we saw Evan Smith go off. 2 weeks ago, it was Luke Purser, 180 yards, 4 touchdowns. Last week, it was Evan Smith, who had 300-plus all-purpose yards and accounted for all 3 touchdowns in that game, 2 rushing and 1 passing. So the freshman quarterback continues to amaze us. He started in that Chelsea game earlier this season where they pick up a 42-6 win against the Hornets. Did it again last week. He did it against Hewitt Trussville as well. Now we'll see what he can do against a Hoover team that's reeling, that struggled to obviously stop an elite quarterback last week in Paul Tyson. But right now you have to feel good about Oak Mountain's chances to at least compete in this game and have a chance late. They may not pick up a win. It's going to be tough going up against a physical Hoover team, your 3rd game in a row against a top 5 team. Obviously the exhaustion is going to kick in. You're going to have to be playing on a lot of adrenaline and momentum. And it's funny, though. You talk to this team, you look at the fan base. I think they're more jacked up now after the loss than possibly if they would have even won that game. I mean, they're just competing with these 2 teams the last 2 weeks has given them loads of confidence, and that's not only going to bode well this Friday night against Hoover for a chance to pull off the upset, but it's also going to bode well moving down the line as they try to finish off region play with 4 straight wins to claim a playoff spot. And I think they can do it. I really do think this team can go and beat Tuscaloosa County, Mountain Brook, Vestavia, and Spain Park. Obviously, those teams are very good, and we may have 5 teams from this region in the top 5 or in the top 10 of the Class 7A standings this week with Vestavia and Mountain Brook as well. So it's obviously not going to get much easier, but I do think this team has the ability and talent to be the 4th best team in this region. As far as the game goes, both of these teams scoring a lot of points. Oak Mountain scoring 36.7 points per game. Hoover scoring 34.8 points per game. So a lot of points going to be put up in this game, and specifically because the defenses are giving up points too. Oak Mountain giving up 32 a game and Hoover giving up 34.5 per game. So you've got 2 teams that are giving up 30-plus per game and scoring 30-plus per game. I expect the scoreboard to be lit up, and when you have that kind of game, that's going to keep both teams in this contest because their defenses are struggling to stop teams. So I really do think that Oak Mountain's going to be in this game just like they have the last 2 weeks. In the second half, they'll have chances to make plays, and it really just comes down to them making the plays first. They fell behind Hoover or Thompson early last week. They fell behind 7-0 after Oak Mountain had a drive all the way down to the Thompson 1-yard line, stood at the goal line. Thompson 2 drives later goes on to score a touchdown and takes a 7-0 lead and never trailed in that game. And 2 weeks before fell behind 28-6 to Hewitt Trussville. So if they can come out on their home field Friday night and score first, watch out, because this is an offense that's not going to be held out of the end zone much on Friday night. So a score early and first in this game could lead to a big upset victory for the Eagles. We'll see how it unfolds. It's going to be a lot of fun out here at Herbmont Park, though, for our game of the week, and hope you guys will make sure to come out and join me out here to watch a fantastic football game. There's just not much else to say about Spain Park right now other than they're struggling, and they know it. They're reeling right now. They've lost 3 games in a row after last week's second-half debacle against Mountain Brook. Gave up 21 unanswered points after a 14-3 halftime lead. Led the game 14-0 at one point, actually, and they were playing really good, and they've done that the last 3 weeks in all 3 of their losses. They've played strong defensively in the first half. The offense has done enough to give them a lead or a tie at halftime, and then they come out in the second half, and I don't know if it's exhaustion on the defensive side, if it's the offense not being able to sustain drives and keep the defense off the field, or what it is, but the second half just hasn't been the same as the first half. Now they get a Hewitt Trussville team that's going to be inside the top 3 probably this week, that's coming off a 56-28 blowout victory against the number 1 Hoover Buccaneers. So this Hewitt Trussville team's riding a high. Spain Park is at a low right now, probably the lowest they'll be this season, one of their worst starts really in school history, and especially since head coach Sean Rainey has taken over the job. They sit at 1-3 now after those 3 losses in a row, one of them being to a 6A team. But the last 2 weeks, they lose to Vestavia, they lose to Mountain Brook, 2 games they obviously needed to win, but they still have a lot ahead of them. The 3 toughest games are upcoming, and this one with Hewitt Trussville, and then they have Thompson and Hoover still on the schedule as well. But this is a team that if they ever get their offense going enough, they have the defense, and it's going to start this week. This is an interesting matchup. Like I said, Hewitt Trussville can't get caught up in last week's big win and not be focused for this week against Spain Park, because their defense will make you pay. And while Hewitt Trussville's lighting up the scoreboard, their defense is struggling. So it's one of those games where I think it's going to be sneaky close. A lot of people may expect Hewitt Trussville to come in, put up a lot of points, really blow Spain Park off the field like they did Hoover, considering that Hoover's a better team than Spain Park. But I don't know. I think this could be a very interesting and close game this Friday night between these two teams. It's a rematch of a game that took place in the first round of the playoffs last year. Hewitt won that game 33-21, and I see that being kind of a consistent score moving into this matchup as well. If you look at these two teams on paper, Hewitt scoring 44 points per game right now and giving up 34.8 points per game. So they're having to outscore people, which they have the offense to get that done. But Spain Park's only giving up 20 points per game, and that's being generous. Most of that has come in the second half. If you look at their first half defense, it's been stout. Not sure they've given up more than 10 points in the first half to any team this season. So if they can carry that defense over into the second half, this is a team that's going to be in the football game. You look at their offense; it's struggling, only scoring 18.5 per game, or 18.3 per game. But I would give them another touchdown to that, because Hewitt's defense is struggling so much. So it's one of those interesting matchups where Spain Park's not as bad as their record shows right now, simply because they do have talent on this team. They are physical, they are big, and their defense is going to keep them in a football game. And I expect them to do that this Friday night. They may not pull off the win, but if they are able to, they're right back into the thick of things, as Class 7A Region 3 is just going to be blown up. And I would not be shocked if that happens. So just stay tuned on Friday night. I do expect Hewitt to win the football game, but would not be surprised if we see a little shocker there between these two teams when they take to the field. There's really not much to break down in this game, just because simply that Thompson is a lot better of a football team than Tuscaloosa County right now. And this team really transformed in the second half of last week's game against the Oak Mountain Eagles. It's a team that struggled to stop the run, specifically scrambling, as head coach Mark Freeman said after their win against Oak Mountain. They struggled to stop the run against Hoover because of Robbie Ashford scrambling out of the pocket and Larry McCammon reeling off some big runs. Last week they had to deal with an Oak Mountain option team that has a freshman quarterback in Evan Smith, who's just been unbelievable so far this season, a running back in Luke Purser with experience that can go over 100 yards any given game, and it's one of the toughest offenses to stop in all of football. And head coach Mark Freeman knew that going into the week. He only had a couple days to prepare for it. And in the first half, the struggles showed. They were still there. Smith was reeling off big run after big run after big run in that game, ended up with 234 rushing yards alone and 2 touchdowns on the ground. So, and that was mostly in the first half. They struggled early on, but talking with Freeman after the game, he was really excited to see the adjustments that the defensive coordinator, the coaching staff, and the players made at halftime to get the defense shored up in the second half. They came out and they played really well there in the second half and really kind of ran away. It was a close game late, but it just seemed as if Thompson had all of the momentum because their defense stepped up to the plate. And when you have a quarterback like Talia Tungavaloa, a running back like Shadrack Berg scoring the first touchdown in the new Warrior Stadium, so etched his name in the history books. Obviously an impressive performance from him in that game. But you have a quarterback like Talia Tungavaloa who had 507 passing yards, 4 touchdowns in that game. He can get into a shootout with anybody, and he's 90% of the time probably going to win that offensive shootout. But if their defense steps up at all, if their defense is like last year's team, then this is a team that can win a state championship. That's what they've needed, is their defense to step up and make big plays. In the second half last week, I saw it. It stems back to that game against Hoover. They have that tape. They have film. They're going to watch that, study it, and they're going to see what they've improved on last week and then continue to study that as well. But this team, I think, is continuing to make progress on that side of the ball. The only other question mark is receivers catching the ball. I mean, every game they have at least 1 or 2 receivers going over 100 yards, catching multiple touchdown passes, but they are dropping some key passes. So that and the defense are the 2 keys moving forward for the Thompson Warriors. If both of those things are clicking, this team, I think, will win a state championship They've got to continue to grow, though. Right now, they're still young. They're replacing a lot from last year's team. But this week, there's not much to worry about. As long as they stay focused and play their game, they're going to take care of business. This is a Tuscaloosa County team that's only scoring 16.5 points per game. And while Thompson's had some defensive struggles, they're still giving up less than 20 points per game. So it's really not a bad defense, and they take advantage of teams that are struggling on the offensive side of the ball. Dominated their first two games against James Clemens and Foley, only giving up a combined 7 points. And I expect us to see them hold Tuscaloosa County to 10 or less in this one. And with the offense rolling so far this season, I don't expect there to be any question marks so far with Tuscaloosa County giving up 26.3 points per game. So I expect Thompson to continue their dominance, roll through this one, and really I don't know that they're going to be tested again until their matchup with Hewitt Trussville on ESPN 2 in the last region game of the season. They will have difficult tests against Spain Park, Mountain Brook, Vestavia. Don't get me wrong, but they've got Hoover out of the way, and I think they're better than those teams. It's just up to them improving and playing up to their capability moving forward. We have two teams looking for really any kind of momentum in this matchup between Pelham and Chelsea. You have Chelsea that's coming off a 22-0 shutout loss, the first time they've been shut out this season to Jackson Nolan. They're sitting at 0-4 on the season, 0-2 in region play. Obviously not a bad shutout. Jackson Nolan's defense is playing stout so far this season. I don't think they've given up more than 10 or 15 points in any game, so it's not a bad shutout loss for Chelsea, but the offense continues to struggle. For Pelham, they're sitting at 2-2 right now, but 0-2 in region play, the most important part of that record after two straight losses over the last 2 weeks, and it's just been tough to wrap your mind around. Last week against Minor, a game they should have won. They had their chances, and they made mistakes. They couldn't move the ball at all, really, in the second half, and that's what cost them that loss against Minor. 2 weeks ago against Homewood, you can't really expect much. That's a tough team, and that's not a bad loss at all. So they had one tough game. They had one game they should have won. Now it's how do you respond to that situation, and both teams are going to be in that situation. Sitting at 0-2 in region play, we're at the midway point of the regular season, and about the midway point of region play as well. So you've really got to start rolling at an 0-3 start in region play. If either of these teams falls to 0-3, I don't think they make the playoffs. So this is a big week for both head coaches to try to get their teams going. It shouldn't be hard to get the momentum up for this cross-county rivalry between Chelsea and Pelham. These teams are going to put it all on the line in a fun atmosphere. I mean, I hate to use the word they don't like each other, but it's one of those fun rivalries in the county. So we'll see kind of how that fuels this game moving forward. And while Chelsea's struggling on offense, I expect them to be able to score more points than usual. Right now they're being held under 10 points per game at 9.8 points per game so far this season on the offensive side. But they're going up against a Pelham defense that's struggling, especially over the last few weeks. Early in the season, this offense and defense of Pelham was playing really good football in their first two games, but the last 2 weeks have really struggled on both sides of the ball. But they're giving up 22.8 points per game defensively, so I expect Chelsea to be able to score some points. But at the end, and they've got a solid defense too, giving up right now 27.8 points per game, so it seems like a lot, but their defenses have been on the field really for the entire game. They get exhausted, but they've competed in games. They've shown their physicality. They've shown their toughness. I expect this to actually be a pretty close game for a while, but in the end, Pelham's offense, while it's concerning right now, it's going to continue to get back to the way it was early in the season. I especially expect them at some point in this game to start clicking. It really starts with the quarterback situation. Matthew Rye, Xavier Langford. Head coach Tom Causey says they're going to play both guys moving forward on really a 50-50 split unless one separates himself. And right now it's just hard. There's been some inconsistency from both guys. One may give you a little bit better of an option than the other, but right now he's not willing to take that chance. He wants to play 50-50, and he wants his guys on the team to surround them, get their morale up, and really play hard for both guys. So it's a tall task to ask of a high school player to do so, but I expect him to he knows his guys. I expect him to get those guys ready for this big matchup with Chelsea. I expect the offense of Pelham to be the difference maker in this one, but it will be a close contest, so watch for that. The Halina Huskies are going to get the team that was on the winning end of that Pelham Minor game. They're going to be taking on the Minor Tigers this Friday night, and it's a game where Halina needs a win big time, and I'm not sure they're going to get it because their offensive struggles right now. They're only putting up 8.8 points per game, but they are taking on a Minor team that's struggling to score as well. This Minor team's only putting up 13.5 points per game. They obviously looked good against Pelham. Pelham's a better team than Halina right now, so we'll see how it unfolds Friday night, but I do expect Halina to stay in this football game between these two teams. I don't think they're going to have enough offensive firepower to be able to pick up a win. Only combined for 13 points in their last two games played. Obviously, Halina coming off a tough 48-6 loss to Homewood. Homewood, one of the best teams in the state, so nothing really to hang their heads on, but they've got to figure out some kind of offensive movement if Halina's going to win a game moving forward. This is a good chance for them, though. With Minor struggling to score, Halina's going to have their chances early in this game. It's been late, kind of like the consistency among the rest of the teams that have struggled this year. It's been that second half that's kind of killed them throughout the season. Maybe not last week. Homewood was winning big early in that game, but the rest of the games Halina's played, they've been in the first half. They've had their chances coming out into the second half, so this is a big chance for Halina. I think they're going to be in a low-scoring game for a while. Maybe their offense can start clicking, make a play to win a big game. If you don't think defense wins football games, then you obviously have not been watching the Briarwood Christian Lions the last 2 years at all, and especially this season. Coming off a 46-0 thumping of the Woodlawn Colonels in that game, just dominant effort on the defensive side of the ball. Forced 7 turnovers in that game. It led to short fields and easy work for the offense, which is probably not a good thing. The offense still needs to get some kinks worked out, especially in the passing game, but the run game's been unstoppable, so not too worried about that right now with the way their offensive line and their defense is playing. But through 3 games, just get this through your heads. Through 3 games, Briarwood is giving up 4 points per game. I mean, that's just an unbelievable number so far this season. They've given up 6 points twice in their first 2 contests, and then last week, obviously, pitched the shutout. So sitting at 3-0 overall, 2-0 in region play as they head into this matchup that had a lot of intrigue a week ago between Winona and Briarwood. It's a Winona team that was sitting in the top 5. We were looking at number 1 versus number 5 a week ago, but then Winona takes on Fairfield and gets shut out 26-0. You don't want to shut out against a team coming in to face this Briarwood team that's coming off a shutout and giving up 4 points per game. So that doesn't bode well for Winona. Obviously, I do think that Winona is a good football team, but last year Briarwood really handled this game 34-0, coming off that semifinal loss the year before and the tough early 14-6 win, I believe, in the regular season that year. So right now, this is a Briarwood team that's clicking in this newly formed rivalry over the last couple years. I expect them to continue rolling after what I saw against Fairfield from Winona last week. There's just too much talent on both sides of the ball for this Briarwood team. You have to expect them to move to 4-0, 3-0 in region play. They're looking to finish undefeated in the regular season for the second year in a row and have won 22 regular season games in a row dating back to 2016. Their last loss was to Chelsea, the first game of the 2016 season. So this is a team that doesn't know how to lose, to be honest with you. And with the way their defense is playing, only giving up 4 points per game, and with the offensive line, that's what a lot of people aren't realizing about this Briarwood team, is while they don't really have a strong passing attack, J.R. Trenrino, obviously the talented athletes taking over at quarterback this year. While they don't have a talented passing attack yet, he may transition into that, but they have the offensive line that helps this team out. They have solid running backs. J.R. Trenrino obviously is a former running back. He's an athlete. He runs the ball a lot. Had 4 touchdowns last week. 3 of them came on the ground. The other actually came through the air as he was a receiver on the end of one of those. So he's just a talented all-around athlete. And then if Luke Pruitt comes back, I know he's nursing an injury right now. He's been out the last couple of weeks. But if he comes back, that's 2 guys that are capable of getting you 100 yards. And they have 2 or 3 guys behind that can also come in. So the ground attack behind this offensive line that's one of the best in the state, it really doesn't make you have to worry about them having to throw the ball or needing to improve right now in throwing the ball. Winona's a team that could make them pay, but I don't think they will, just simply because of their offensive struggles last week. Right now, there's just too much confidence, too much talent on this Briarwood team on both sides of the ball for Winona to be able to pull off the upset. I say it each and every week that Shelby County comes off of a loss. Their schedule sets up for them to win a football game this year, and it starts this Friday night. This is going to be most likely their best chance to win a game the entire season, but especially to date, this is their best chance to win a football game. They'll be taking on Marbury. One of these teams has got to win a football game this Friday night. They're both winless on the season so far. Shelby County 0-4, Marbury I believe 0-3 so far on the season. So one of these teams is going to walk out the victor, going to pick up that first win of the season, and Shelby County should win this football game. They've had a couple of chances over the last couple weeks, took on an average Chilton County team, got blown out in that one 34-0, and then last week they struggle again against Bibb County, lose that one 30-24, but they showed a little bit more promise. That's the most points they've scored so far this season, and equaled really their combined total throughout the entire season in their first 3 games before that. So the offense finally showed some promise, obviously against a Bibb County team that has struggled this year, so still not a good loss there, but continue to show that promise. This is a Marbury team that's really struggling right now as well. Shelby County and Marbury both on the offensive side of the ball have failed to score a lot of points this year. Shelby County under 10 points per game at 9 right now, while Marbury is at 11.3. So neither team's going to light up the scoreboard, I don't think. But the defensive side of the ball could be the difference in this one. Right now, Shelby County giving up an average of 24.8 points per game. Marbury giving up 33.7 points per game. So while neither team's scoring, the defense is going to give you your chances to score. And I think, honestly, that Shelby County a little bit more balanced, especially a little bit more talented on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're going to win this game. I'm calling it. I think they win their first game of the season as long as their morale is still there, as long as they still have the belief, as long as they still have the will and want to win, they can and should win this football game against Marbury. I think the matchup I'm probably actually most excited for this Friday night is going to be this matchup between Montevallo and American Christian. And not only is this matchup flying under the radar, this Montevallo team is flying drastically under the radar. Off to a 4-0 start overall, sitting at 1-0 in region play. This is their game of the year. This is it. This is going to be their biggest matchup that they're going to take place in against American Christian on Friday night, and it pits one of the best offenses in the state in Montevallo going up against one of the best defenses in the state in American Christian. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but right now, Montevallo coming off another thumping, a 64-41 win over Jemison, and not only is that a big win as far as putting up a lot of offensive production, that's a win over a 5A team for the 3rd time this year, and a win over a 5A, at least a team that was in 5A last year for the 4th time. So they've beaten 4 former 5A teams, 3 current 5A teams. This is a team that was in the 3A classification a season ago, so that's just an unbelievable task in its own for Montevallo to come out and play that kind of game against 5 or 4 teams that have been higher classification the last year. It's been unbelievable to see the progress that Montevallo has made from a season ago where they only picked up 3 wins. It's just been unbelievable, and it starts with Malik and Bennett, J.J. Evans on the offensive side of the ball, and Dion Gilliland, a strong running performance this past Friday night. It's just been unbelievable to see what this offense has been able to do. In that game against Jemison, put up 700 plus yards of total offense. So that's just an unbelievable number. We'll see how that continues into this game, however, because this American Christian defense is no joke whatsoever. Through 3 games, guess what? They haven't given up a single point. That's right. They might be better than Briarwood's defense. It's a team that's giving up 0 points per game through 3 games of the season, and the talent they've played obviously has not been the best across the state. That being said, it's a defense that is really good. It's an American Christian team that actually is scoring more points per game than Montevallo, so something's got to give in this game. Montevallo's defense has been average throughout the season, not the greatest, not the worst. Their offense has obviously been superb, but American Christian has been superb on both sides of the ball. That's something that Montevallo's got to really look forward to in this matchup. They're going to have to be ready to go on both sides of the ball. Their offense can't have any setbacks because American Christian's not only going to score a lot of points in this game, I think, but their defense is obviously stout and can stop Montevallo if they're playing their best game. So Montevallo's got to be clicking, continue their momentous start to the season. I think they've got a strong chance to do so in this game. Last year it was American Christian. They dominated this game, I believe, 51-6. American Christian won this game last year. Obviously, it was a Montevallo team dealing with injuries, struggling a little bit last year. But they met 2 years ago, and Montevallo actually won that game 14-6. So I see this being much more closer than last year's contest. I still tend to lean in the favor of American Christian, but I do think it's going to be a very close ball game. And with Montevallo's offense, they've shown each and every week they can make plays to win football games on that offensive side of the ball. We'll see if that continues to be the case this week, but it's going to be a fantastic football game between these two teams, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds. Well, we almost made it through the video without having to change up our angle, but the sun's finally come up over the mountain and over Herbmont Stadium here, so we changed it up a little bit, but we've got just a couple more games to talk about. Our last AHSAA game is going to be in 2A. The Vincent Yellow Jackets going to be taking on the Thorsby Rebels, and Vincent just really can't catch a break as far as their schedule goes. They'll be taking on a Thorsby team sitting at 4-0, coming off a shocking, huge win against Lafayette last week. They win that one 18-14, and that's a Lafayette team that really dominated Vincent 40-0 2 weeks ago. So if Thorsby's better than Lafayette, Lafayette clearly showed they were better than Vincent. So this Thorsby team's probably going to come in, probably going to roll over a Vincent team that's had a very, very tough and difficult schedule to start the season. We'll see how they handle this moving forward. They'll have some more winnable games on the second half of the schedule, but right now Vincent's scoring 13.3 points per game and giving up close to 50 points per game, while Thorsby is scoring 36.8 points per game. So with the defensive struggles, failing to score points, everything just stacks up to lead into the favor of the Thorsby Rebels in this matchup. But Vincent, like I said, they still have all of their goals moving forward. They have a little bit easier of a stretch in the second half. We'll kind of see how they've grown moving forward after this week's game against Thorsby on Friday night. Now, before we get into our SCR Stars of the Week, we're going to talk a little bit about the AISA and ACSC teams. A much better week across those divisions. We got 3 wins from our county teams, and it started in the AISA. Kingwood bounces back from their loss to number 1 Tuscaloosa Academy, bounces back from that loss. They're now 4-1 on the season. They'll be taking on Cornerstone, who's coming off a tough loss last week by 1 point. So both these teams kind of in different situations. Kingwood literally complete opposites. Kingwood 4-1, Cornerstone 1-4 on the season. They'll be taking each other on in a big county matchup this Friday night, and you just have to expect Kingwood to roll. They're playing really good football right now so far this season. I do expect Cornerstone to have some winnable games moving forward. Their schedule gets a lot easier than their first half stretch here after this game against Kingwood, but right now Kingwood playing way too good. You also have Coosa Valley. They'll be traveling to Lowndes Academy this week, taking on a 3-1 team. Coosa Valley, kind of like Kingwood and Cornerstone, just the opposite ends of the spectrum here. Lowndes 3-1, Coosa Valley sitting at 1-3. But this Coosa Valley team continues to show progress, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They're going to be a good football team by the end of the year, but like Cornerstone, their schedule has just been brutal so far to start the season. I expect Lowndes to pick up a win in that one as well. Evangel also gets another big win. They get their second in a row, now sit at 3-2 on the season. What's their reward? They get one of the best AISA teams, being an ACSC team that plays 8-man football in an 8-man football conference. Jumping up to 11-man is a difficult task. They normally do it pretty well. Bessemer Academy, though, is one of the best teams in the AISA, so that's going to be a tough test for Evangel, but I wouldn't be surprised if they compete pretty well in that one. But last week they take down Ezekiel, the team they beat in the state championship of the ACSC last year, so I expect Evangel to continue to roll, especially in 8-man football moving forward after this game against Bessemer Academy. And then Hope versus Lighthouse. This is a Hope Christian team that's coming off its second win of the season, gave New Life its first loss of the season last Friday night. And now this week, I think this is a team that Hope can beat as well. This is a Lighthouse Academy team that's sitting at 0-4 on the season so far. So we may see the Hope Christian Eagles improve to 3-3 in region play this Friday night in an exciting game. But I expect Hope actually to roll through that one and improve their record to 500. We'll wind down the show with our favorite segment, the SCR Stars of the Week. We're going to name our best players from across the county in Week 4 of the high school football season and close out the show as we head into Week 5 this upcoming Friday night. But last week, another exciting week of high school football. We saw a lot of action, a lot of chaos, and a lot of good football games. I'm really, like I said, the lead into the show, getting a good feel for the players across the county and the teams across the county. So we're going to name our best players from the week. We'll start in 7A, work our way down to the 3 Montevallo players that were named SCR Stars of the Week. But we're going to start in 7A, and it obviously starts in that Oak Mountain Hoover game, the Oak Mountain Thompson game, the two quarterbacks combining for 800-plus yards of offense, 828 yards to be exact. And we'll start with Evan Smith, the Oak Mountain quarterback, 237 rushing yards and 321 all-purpose yards, and accounted for all 3 of his team's touchdowns against a very good top 5 Thompson team in that game. So Evan Smith continues to play some incredible football as a freshman. I mean, he's just wowed me every week, has fast legs, and as a freshman, a really strong arm that they're going to take advantage of over the next 3 years after this season. So look out for Evan Smith. He's going to be a talented guy for the next 4 years across the Shelby County area and across the state of Alabama and possibly even throughout the country. He's one of the best freshmen I've ever seen play the game of football. So he's our first SCR Star of the Week. Moving on to the second part of that quarterback duo and battle between Thompson and Hoover, and that's obviously Talia Tungavaloa at Thompson. 507 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. It's just another day playing high school football for him. He's just an incredible talent, and it's going to put those kind of numbers up every week. So expect him to be a mainstay on this show. I expect him to really roll this week against Tuscaloosa County. We'll see how far into that game he plays before Sawyer Pate gets some work, as long as Thompson takes care of their business in that win. And then also Kyle Smoke. This is a guy that's really probably their most trustworthy receiver and definitely their smallest. He plays the slot position there and catches really everything thrown his way. There's been a lot of drops this season, but Smoke had 162 receiving yards to lead the Warriors team in that victory against Oak Mountain. He's their most sure-handed receiver. You've got guys like Michael Petway, who had 2 touchdowns, 100-plus receiving yards in that game. A.J. Bonham continues to do good things, and some other ones. Trey Roberson, I believe, got injured in that game, but we're hoping for a speedy recovery for him. But those guys have dropped some passes. I mean, you just got to be frank about it. They've dropped some passes. Obviously, very talented. Petway's putting up about 2 touchdowns a game and averaging more than 100 receiving yards a game, and is one of the best receivers in the state, but has dropped a few. Smoke is their most sure-handed guy. If those other guys step up and start catching everything thrown their way, this is going to be the scariest offense you will see play high school football. But all around, that is a very talented receiving core that's still growing. But it's just unbelievable to see the talent that Talia has to throw to there at Thompson. Moving on down to Briarwood in the 5A classification, and what an unbelievable performance from the Briarwood defense. Forced 7 turnovers, giving up just 4 points per game through 3 games after that shutout against Woodlawn. They've gave up 6 in their opener, 6 in their second game, and then 0 last week for that average of 4 points per game. So their defense playing unbelievable to start the 2018 football season, off to obviously a 3-0 start overall and 2-0 in region play. J.R. Trainrino, nothing needs to be said. He had another 4-touchdown performance, 3 rushing, 1 receiving as the quarterback. He got some time again at receiver like he did a lot last year. So J.R. Trainrino continues to play some unbelievable football on the offensive side of the ball, kind of where he left off last year, where he had I believe 7 touchdowns in a 2-week span, or maybe even more than that. I know he had a couple where he had 4 touchdowns 2 weeks in a row. So Trainrino continuing that kind of trend, multiple touchdowns per game. I expect that to continue moving forward, and especially to be a big difference maker on Friday when they take on Winona in a big matchup, a region matchup there between those two. And that takes us to our last 3 SCR Stars of the week at Montevallo. Malik Bennett, J.J. Evans, and Deion Gilliland. It starts with Malik Bennett. This kid, he's just a junior right now, continuing to improve, but he's had 220-plus passing yards in every game, and he's coming off a 420-yard, 4-touchdown performance last week in that 64-41 win against Jemison. Big reason they put up 700 yards of total offense in that game. And his favorite target continued to be J.J. Evans. Evans had 200 receiving yards and is just dominating week in and week out. It's just amazing to see the connection those two have with each other, and they're going to have to be on the same page as they take on an American Christian team that's giving up no points, has given up no points through 3 games this season. Deion Gilliland, another one there. He had close to 200 rushing yards, and he's starting to really emerge. They have a couple of running backs there that can put up big yards like that, but over the last couple of weeks, I've been impressed by the numbers he's put up and the way he's played for that offense as well. So it's just an all-around talented offense that's going to be taking on the best defense in the state in American Christian this Friday night. So we'll see kind of how what has to give there in that matchup. But that's not the only exciting game we have going on Friday night across the entire county. A lot of teams at home. Our game of the week out here at Herbmont Park between Oak Mountain and Hoover. You've got Spain Park hosting Hewitt, Trussville, Briarwood, Winona, Montevallo American Christian, Chelsea, Pelham, a good in-county rivalry matchup there. So just all across the county, impressive football games this Friday night, and a lot of them at home. So make sure you get out, you support your team. It's going to be a fantastic night of high school football. We're inching closer to fall. Hopefully the weather will start cooperating with us and not be 100 degrees out there every Friday night. But get out, enjoy your Friday night. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds. But for now, that's going to do it from out here at Herbmont Park, where our game of the week will take place between Oak Mountain and Hoover.